Welcome to Chat with Leaders. Our mission is to give resilient servant leaders a platform for sharing the inspiring things that they're doing to lead their teams, customers, and themselves wisely. Today, I have a returning guest, and Rod Hames, who is the entrepreneurship teacher over at Cruz Middle School. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
So back a long time, it was a while ago. Do you know when you started this entrepreneurship program?
Well, the
It was kind of
actual
a
idea,
soft date. It was kind of a soft date. It really didn't start. You just kind of built it, right?
we just kind of build it. 29 years ago, it's hard for me to get those numbers out. I started teaching the idea of starting a business. Now, it was mainly just a theory business, one that you might open. But really about 5 or 6 years ago, we were really pushed a little bit further. The high schools were actually having kids open up their own business. So I needed to up my game. And so I told my students, it's time to start a real business. You guys, you're ready. So that's probably 5 or 6 years ago.
So what was the problem area that you saw? Like why was this such a big deal for you to kind of level up your game per se to kind of match what the high school was doing?
Well, it's all about expectations. The school system that I teach at is very high expectations. And I'll tell you this, the person who really made it really a high expectation for me was Cindy Quinlan. Cindy was the entrepreneurship teacher, same thing that I taught, but she was at the high school level. I actually taught her many years ago. So now she's now above me in the sense that she's at the high school.
You
She
can't
starts
have
the
your
program.
you can't have your
here,
student beating you up like that.
no, you just can't do that. You can't. So that basically is like, okay, now I got to do something. I got to make sure I compete here a little bit.
That
And
is
that's funny.
awesome. So what did you start off with doing? Because I know at the high school you said that they were actually creating their businesses, and if I recall correctly, they're actually getting business license and stuff like that now in high school. So what did you start with? Like, what was that ground level introduction to it?
Well, I guess the ground level introduction is we just started asking the pertinent questions where we really wanted to dive into their lives a little bit more than what do you want to do? I want to be an engineer, which is great, or I want to be a doctor, whatever, the normal things that kids say because one, either their parents told them to say that or they want to make a lot of money or whatever. I started asking the really deep questions is what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you love to do? What is it that you already have some skill level in? And then we started thinking about, well, there's problems out there that you can solve and you can make money at this. It's called entrepreneurship. And so we really started teaching the mindset. And that became a lot different than just think of a business and we'll have you create that business and it'll be all theory. We were getting away from theory. We wanted actual businesses that the kids would like to create right then.
And that's the interesting part is, it's great to go after what you're passionate about and what you love doing. It's that piece where what everyday, almost common problem can you solve through your passion? And I think that's the piece that a lot of entrepreneurs that whether you're in 8th grade or 80 years old, doesn't matter. It's how do you find that problem? Because I get a lot of business inquiries of like, hey, I have this idea of how to create this app or this website or whatever it is. And their idea is interesting, but it doesn't solve a problem that people are having. It's just this really cool, nifty new toy. And typically speaking, that stuff doesn't work. You have to solve a problem. And is that something, I assume that's something that you're talking with your kids about, is how do you solve that problem?
Oh yeah, we always tell the kids, you have a great hobby. And that's what we call it. You have a fabulous hobby and you love it, you're passionate about it, it's interesting to you, you go home, you want to do it. But if it's not really solving a problem that people are willing to actually pull out their wallet or their app and pay for, you don't really have a business. So you're going to have to do some market research, some feet on the ground and talk to people. You have to turn the hobby into a business that's totally different, and it takes some groundwork, and you have to think through it.
And a lot of the most successful ideas are coming from almost the silliest problems, the smallest problems, and they're not pretty they're simple things. And of course right now I can think of metaphors on the fly, but I can't think of one at the moment. But it's not about creating this ridiculously complex system. It's about figuring out, the simple piece of, how do you keep a pin from drying out? Well, you build a cap to put on top of it, right? Whoever invented the pin cap, hopefully, the pin cap came around the same time the pin did. Who knows? But it's that simple solution of a little cheap piece of plastic that helps increase the longevity of your pins now.
And that's where we begin, Chris. We actually start talking to the kids about, let's think about problems, everyday problems you have in your life. And let's think about all those things that are annoyances, or things that are like stumble upon, or you're like, oh, I wish. Well, that's exactly how many businesses begin. So it's a great way to begin, is just helping the kids brainstorm about their own problems that they're having.
And with your entrepreneurship program that you have, the last time I spoke to you, I think you have gotten, or you and the team that you're working with within the county have gotten this into the elementary school. Am I
Yeah,
correct about that? Because
yeah.
that sounds crazy to me.
Well, it may sound crazy to you, but it's just like financial literacy. You start when they're 1 year old or 2 years old, and then they're bugging you, tell you can't have that. It also starts very early in first grade, kindergarten, when you think about jobs that they could do. So how could they help a teacher? Oh my word, they could solve a problem. Every day when we go in, there's a fish tank in the back, and I'm having to go back there and sprinkle some fish in there. Sprinkle some fish, sprinkle some food in there, right?
Please don't sprinkle some fish. That sounds bad.
We won't do that. And so what happens is the teacher says, oh my word, I could hire a student, teach them some entrepreneurship mindset, problem solving for the teacher. They could do that. They could interview, right? They could write up a little paragraph about what they're going to do, make a little job application, right? And then they could dress up, put on a nice little suit and tie, and come in and interview, have some interview skills. And then we could wrap that all up into, this is an entrepreneurship venture for kids who are wanting to help out in the classroom. And it's paid off huge dividends at our elementary school, because now the kids are just ecstatic about going to school because they have a job, and they don't want to miss.
And they can take ownership in these things. And I think that, like, I know when I was in school was not my favorite thing. And so to me, to put it very simplistically, I go, I sit down, I learn, and I come back home. That was it. My social activity was typically outside of school. And so the fact that you can get a kindergartner to have ownership in something, and not just, finishing, putting the blocks away at school, but something that you can get excited about, saying that this is my job, this is my role I play, and what I do helps out my teacher, it helps out my fellow students, and I get to do that. Like, that's part of the core of being an entrepreneur is, you're helping solve that problem for somebody, and you're serving other people with your skill set in the process.
And they even get, Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they even get to get these things called Bronco bucks. And so it's really cool. They get all this money, accumulate this money, and they have a banker, and they go through the whole classroom, what we call classroom economy. And then at the end, I think maybe even there's a midway point during Christmas time, they can turn in those Bronco bucks and buy items that have been either donated by the community, and then they can use that money to buy things, and typically then be able to provide a Christmas present for a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad. And so it's really cool that it's actual things that they can buy. And then at the end of the school year, they maybe can also go back and buy a bicycle because they've accumulated all these Bronco bucks. So I love how they've made it so real.
Earlier this week, you and I were kind of talking about like the power of why. Obviously, like Simon Sinek coined all that, wrote the book on it. It's fantastic. how does understanding that why, even at an early age like kindergarten, how does that help shape a student over the years if they're able to figure that out early on?
Well, it goes back very simply, Chris, to there's basic things that we all have to have. We all have to have love. We have to have hope. We have to have that why in life. It gets us out of the bed and it gets us excited about life because we figured out this is something that I can contribute and I can be a vital part of other people's lives. And sometimes it's things that we do, it's services, and sometimes it's a product that we're producing or making. I feel like we're all made to be creative in life. And understanding your why means you don't just go to work and clock in, you make your widget and you walk out. You clock in with a purpose and you make the widget because you know at the end what it's going to do to transform someone's life. And that is to me the biggest part of our meaningful contribution to being able to be a human citizen in this world.
And I love the fact, like just the taking ownership aspect of that. When you go to a restaurant, and you go down the line, let's say like, like one of those build your own burrito kind of places. And the person that's putting all this food onto your burrito that they're making, there's almost a sense in some restaurants and with some employees that you get that you kind of question, like, does this guy own the place? Because you can almost just feel that tangibleness of like, they feel like they're the ones that make not all the decisions, but how they're bringing you into that burrito making process, as simple as it is. If you feel like you have ownership of it and your why is serving other people to the best of your ability, those are the kind of people that exude that just love and that passion for whatever they're doing, even when it's something as simple as making a burrito.
Yeah, I was at I don't know if you've ever heard of a restaurant called In and Out. They're mainly
Oh
on the
yeah.
West Coast.
I love In and Out, and if anybody hasn't been there, I feel sorry for them. I wish this
Well,
is the only reason I wish we didn't live in Georgia is because of In and Out. My wife is big fan.
oh, okay, so I struck a nerve with you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When I was in Anaheim, California recently, I got the pleasure for the first time ever of going into an In and Out. And so when you were talking about the making the burrito, I thought about the young lady who her only job, it seemed like, was to come to the microphone and say, order 57 is here. She didn't just do it that way, Chris. She had enthusiasm, excitement. She would ask, hey, is this your first time here? And she kind of was had this intuition. She knew what to ask these customers. And she didn't do it the same way every time. It was not robotic at all. It was so genuine. She had that smile and enthusiasm. I was thinking, man, no wonder In and Out, not to mention when I ate the burger, it melted in my mouth. It was so good.
It really
But
does.
it was good. So anyway, that's my story about that.
That is awesome. Well, Rod, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really do appreciate you giving it up for me and chatting with me. Is there, for people that, for potential teachers or educators that might be interested in learning a little bit more about how you kind of started this whole entrepreneurship program in the middle school and how it's kind of grown, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way I would love to have them connect with me is through my website. So it's mrhames.org. It's spelled MRHAM as in Mary, ES.org. It'd give me great pleasure to help anyone, especially of your audience. Thank you, Chris, for hosting me today. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we'll talk to y'all later.